What is up, you guys? Naesam here, and this is going to be a video with some tips and tricks for Krosus, specifically for elemental shamans. These tricks can be used in all difficulties, but it's mostly aimed towards mythic. So without further ado, let's get started. So first thing first, as always, let's talk about the talents. This is one of those bosses where you can use pretty much any talent you want. I personally, on our first kill, I used Ice Fury just because 6-minute fights with a pretty infrequent movement, but there definitely is some movement. But it's mostly the fact that it's a 6-minute fight, so it's actually just by far the worst kind of kill time you can ever have for Ascendants. But after using Ice Fury and getting the first kill with it and everything, I've come to the conclusion that I fucking hate the travel time, and I no longer am willing to play Ice Fury on it. And just because of the travel time, there's a whole lot more calculations going on in your head about timing and stuff, and it makes Ice Fury significantly harder to play than it already is. So if you're like a super expert player and really want to min-max, Ice Fury is probably going to net the most boss DPS, but I ended up going with Ascendance after a while, and Lightning Rod is also an option. Lightning Rod honestly might be better than Ascendance for me, just because the kill time and all, but it kind of depends on ad spawns. But yeah, basically you can use whatever you want. If you're not looking to like super min-max, I would probably just go with Ascendance. One last thing to mention is that with Ascendance, Totem Mastery is probably going to be superior, partly because you have a less Lava Burst-centric damage layout because of the kill time. You only get 2 Ascendances in the 6 minutes, so Totem Mastery is probably going to be better. And also you get Cleave on the ad sometimes, which, again, Totem Mastery, and it's not going to spread from the boss to the ads, so Path of Flame is going to be useless in that sense. So I would definitely recommend going Totem Mastery with Ascendance on this boss. So the next thing I want to mention is your usage of cooldowns. The thing I've kind of been experimenting with is using Stormkeeper before using Ascendance, depending on the side the beam picks. Because you can't predict the very first beam, so you kind of have to just pick a side, stand there, and hope it doesn't pick you. But if you pop your Ascendance right before the beam comes out, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to ruin probably a cast and a half, maybe 2 casts of your Ascendance. So what I've been doing is I've been doing my normal opener, getting the big flame check up, and then using Stormkeeper, and then running to the other side with the Stormkeeper charges, and then popping Ascendance. The only issue with this is that you will very, very rarely have a Power of the Maelstrom proc because you haven't mashed out all those Lava Bursts. So I honestly don't know if this is an increase or not. It probably isn't, unless you get a Potom proc, so I've actually been only doing that with a Potom proc, otherwise I just kind of run to the other side and then pop Ascendance. But in general, just don't pop Ascendance immediately, wait for the beam to come out, go to the safe side, and then use it, and pray that you don't get Orb, basically. So now let's talk a little more in depth about Stormkeeper. The way you use Stormkeeper kind of depends on what your group needs. You either use it on the boss on cooldown to get the maximum uses out of it and get that crazy boss damage, which isn't really that crazy because you're an elemental shaman, or you can go for the ad damage, which I would recommend, but it kind of, maybe your guild has a whole bunch of AoEers and not enough single targets. You got to kind of cater to what you need. But the way I did it was I did the first one on pull before Ascendance, which actually, in the end, it does seem a little weird because you don't get the Potom proc, but it does make it line up with the second ads really well. Unfortunately, the second ads, the bridge isn't that far back, so the ads are typically pretty spread out. But it's still pretty good sometimes with the stack up at all. But I did the first one on cooldown, or on pull, and then the second one was on cooldown after that, and the third one, you have to save probably 5 to 10 seconds to get with the ads. That's where if you did it after Ascendance, it wouldn't be up in time. It would be up a little bit after, which might still work depending on how long the ads last, but if the ads last that long, then you have a bigger issue. But then the fourth one I saved for ads again, because the further you get back on the platform, the more you need to save your Stormkeeper, because the more you're going to have the ads condensed, the more chain lightning you can get off, all that stuff. And then the fifth one is the fifth one I saved the last set of ads, which it's like, no matter how you're doing this, I would absolutely recommend saving it for the last set of ads. Unless your guild is like Soak Gods or something, there's going to be a lot of ads on that last set, and they're all going to be very close together. So saving Stormkeeper there is a ton of damage. Just remember that doing the strategy I just laid out, the one I did, you are losing 1 potential use of Stormkeeper. Maybe even 2 if you like precasts or something, but I wouldn't really recommend doing that. But you're absolutely losing 1 use of Stormkeeper as opposed to if you did it on cooldown. But in the end, you're probably getting more DPS out of it, assuming your group isn't super good at soaking, which most groups aren't. Usually you get a few ads. I've only ever had 1 kill where we didn't have a whole bunch of chain lightning at the end. If you're using Ice Fury, this next part won't really apply to you, because Ice Fury you just kind of use on cooldown. There's no real special rules or anything. The next part, I'm going to be talking about Ascendance. And as I mentioned previously, the Enrage is 6 minutes. Hard Enrage, there's no getting past it. So no matter what you do, you're only getting 2 Ascendance, unless you do some crazy strat where you pre-pop Ascendance and use it immediately on cooldown, which I don't even know why I mentioned that. There's no way you'd ever want to do that. But basically, you're only getting 2. So that's why saving it till after the first beam and stuff and all this saving stuff is perfectly okay, because you can theoretically save it up to 3 minutes and not actually, well, not quite 3 minutes, but you can save it up to like 2 minutes 45 seconds total out the duration of the fight and not actually lose any use out of it as long as you use it immediately after that. So the first one, as I mentioned, you use after the first beam, and then the second one, it's kind of like, you have to keep in mind that there's double beams constantly, there's ads you have to run out to soak and stuff, so you really gotta find that window. Usually I save it to upwards of like a minute, and then I'll use it when we're standing in the corner waiting for slam and then orb and then whatever else. And you can usually get most of it off. You might have to move for a beam at the tail end, but at that point you have enough Maelstrom to Earth Shock and kind of wage the gap and not really lose that much damage out of it. Another thing you can do is you can fish for procs before using it. This is something that we usually recommend you don't do, but because you can save it so long on this fight, if you want to sit there and wait for a Whisper's proc, as long as you're ready to pop it immediately when Whisper's procs, that's perfectly fine. If you want to sit there and wait for Metronome to stack up or whatever, that's perfectly fine. If you want to sit there and wait for whatever trinket proc, whatever proc you want, maybe you want to wait for Elemental Blast to give you Mastery. It doesn't matter, you can do it. It's perfectly fine as long as you aren't like popping right before beam or something. You can save it as long as you want for the second one, as long as you don't like wait until after the boss dies, obviously. So Ascendance is really, that's the nice thing about Ascendance on this boss, is that you can kind of use it whenever you want to use it, whenever it feels right. And you can even use it on like ads if you really want to, though I don't really think that would be a super good idea unless you're really struggling on certain sets of ads. But yeah, long story short, Ascendance you can use whenever, and Stormkeeper I kind of saved with ads for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th one. One last tip that I thought of while I was editing this video was that every time you have enough Maelstrom to Earth Shock, every time you have a Lava Surge proc, just take a step over during the global to the other side of the platform, other side of the bridge, so you can dodge the next beam without having to move. It just saves you a lot of movement that actually affects you, like negatively. It's basically you're completely negating the movement by doing that. So that is definitely a tip for all ranged. So the last thing I kind of want to talk about is the place of an Elemental Shaman in Mythic Krosus, or whatever Krosus you're doing. Basically, it's similar to Trilliax, where you're not really ideal. You're not really a good choice to bring. If they had other options that were equally skilled or whatever, they would bring someone else, because Ellie Shaman just really isn't that good on Krosus except for the last ad pack. The one thing you do bring that is really nice is a short cooldown interrupt, an AoE stun, and Gust of Wind that you can leap out and get the far back soaks without really like having to leave super early. And that's pretty much it. But you basically have to emphasize your strengths on this. Be the guy who runs all the way to the back to soak. Just as long as your guildmaster is aware that your damage is going to suck, but you're doing mechanics and all that, it's generally not a huge deal. But obviously you still want to maximize your damage, but there's only so much you can do on a fight like this as an LA Shaman. So emphasize your strengths. Try to soak things that are far back. Use your stun every time ads come out. It actually lines up perfectly. It's a 45-second cooldown. Ads come out every 45 seconds. Wait, no, ads come out every 90 seconds. So it actually... I'm being dumb right now. It lines up, whatever. You always have it up. So use it on ads every time they spawn. Use interrupt on ads. Be the pro player who really makes the fight easier for everyone else, even if her damage isn't that great. Let the melee and the warlocks and stuff carry you to victory while you do mechanics. So I think that about sums up everything I really talk about for Krosus. He's a pretty simple boss, mostly a DPS check and a soaking check. So that's the end of this video. Again, if you have any feedback on what boss to do next, I would greatly appreciate it, because I'm actually currently, as of the time of recording this, I'm 8 of 10 Mythic, and I can do anything up to the last 2. But I don't know what order you guys want it in, especially with the nerfs coming in. I don't know what bosses are going to be the next easiest and stuff. So whatever you guys are progressing on right now, whatever you guys want the tips for, please let me know in the comments, and I will take the most popular one and do that one next. So thanks for watching, guys, again, and hopefully this helps some people. Like if you liked all that other stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. so you can kind of be prepared to fucking, god damn it, I can't fucking talk today, Jesus fuck.